jobs at the highest levels of our athletic department.
According to mine, no.
Dr. Benapudi goes on in her statement to say that she and the current U of L athletic director
he's just not back in the room.
to changing that narrative. Now, Eves also tells us tonight that he knows Dr. Benapudi and Beard were scheduled to talk, but U of L spokesman tells us that it was a private conversation and he doesn't know the details. Live tonight for the Night Team, I'm Tyler Emery.
I'm telling him to join the Zoom.
Okay.
All right, there we go. Much better. I want y'all to look good because this is going to be
trending online. This video shows a passenger traveling from the Charlotte airport refusing to comply with the flight's face mask requirement. She calls the rule tyrannical. Our Charlotte station spoke to passengers on the flight about the chaotic scene.
Okay, let's go live. You guys ready?
To the nation's capital was going as planned when passenger Jonathan Asford decided to take a quick nap. But mid-flight.
And good afternoon, everybody. We're so glad to see you. 502 live stream is here with two very, very important people on my left.
All I saw and what I woke up to and started recording
they
was
are
her
absolutely amazing
about how this is tyranny
folks who are working
and how
very hard
we have to stand up for this.
Other passengers tell me this all started when there was concern after this woman was spotted wearing her mask improperly below her nose during the flight.
No such provisions are in place to prevent this brutal torture from taking place to young LGBTQ youth. So let me introduce Tanner Mobley to you, and appreciate you being here, Tanner. Thank you.
Good to be here. Thank you.
And this guy is known by several names. Dusty Ray Bottoms is one of them. Dustin Rayburn from Rupaul's Drag Race. A survivor of conversion therapy. Summer, Riot Heart, Maxwell's out there somewhere. I'm not sure where he is, lost in inner space here, but we're so grateful to have the opportunity to bring this message to you. And if you would, Tanner, just give us a quick start and tell us what conversion therapy is and why you are working so hard with the legislature to ban it.
Absolutely. So conversion therapy and in short, is basically attempts to change a person's sexual orientation or gender identity. It's commonly referred to as conversion therapy. However, I prefer Senator Kerr's word for it, which is conversion torture, which I think more accurately describes what these practices are. In terms of what these practices look like, I've heard from dozens and dozens of survivors at this point. And it's really just kind of insane just how many different tactics there are to try to do this. But the really core theme of all of these is trying to get a person to associate their feelings and identity with shame or painful stimuli. So that could be anywhere from, I met a survivor who, as a teen, was forced to wear a backpack full of bricks for 14 hours at a time to feel the weight of homosexuality. Exorcisms, reconditioning, having people snap rubber bands against their wrists every time they have a same-sex thought, or even more extreme examples, having children sit on blocks of ice while exposing them to pornography, wrapping hands in heat coils and showing them pictures of men holding hands, and they'll turn the heat coils off when it's pictures of a man and a woman holding hands together. A lot of those things, the more barbaric versions do happen, but today what we're seeing a little bit more of is what our opposition likes to call talk therapy, which I find incredibly frustrating because it's not just talk therapy, it's shaming and going back to that, getting a person to associate these very innate and normal feelings with something shameful or awful, often telling kids that they're disgusting, that that God and their community is going to hate them or is going to ridicule them if they don't change. Sometimes even blatant lying. I met a survivor a couple of years ago that was told at 7 years old that they were the last gay person on earth, and if they didn't change their identity, the government would come find them and kill them. At 7 years old. And so his parents were actually missionaries in Africa. And so he had seen, in instances where that could happen, where, people have been taken away by the government and those types of things. So as a 7-year-old hearing that, and that feeling very real. I mean, could you imagine the psychological trauma you would go through the rest of your life feeling something like that? But yeah, that's what this is, torture.
So this is going on. Jess Bowman just said, "Hi, Tanner. Love you, friend." So that's good. We've got some folks up on our live streams who are very interested in this topic. Dusty, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you so much from our many years ago, as you said, back in the day at Heyman Talent Times together. It's great to see you. You look fantastic.
Thank you.
And it's probably nothing short of a miracle, considering what you've experienced in your young life. So I just like to make it an open-ended question. What was it like to survive conversion therapy? Tell us your story.
Well, I'm so happy to be here with you. Thank you for letting me use your platform to tell my story. I'm from the Louisville area. I was born in Louisville, and I grew up in southern Indiana, just in Floyd's Knobs. My dad was really active and heavy in the church, so was my grandfather. He was a traveling evangelist, opened a lot of churches all over the country, and has a record where he sings gospel music, like very into the church my whole life. So I knew growing up that being gay wasn't an option, and that was always such a prevalent rule in my life. Probably because I was a flamboyant kid and it was very obvious, so they had to let that be known that you can't be gay growing up. Because if you knew me as a kid, there was no mistaking that kid is gay, for sure. So trying to keep the secret and live all these different lives, the life for my family, the life that I had to live in church and with my peers in school, and then trying to figure out what life I was trying to live for myself, really, really made it hard for me to connect with people, make lasting relationships, and it made it it made me really depressed. Life was really hard to go on to connect with people. And this happened my sophomore year of college. I was 20, and a lot of conversion therapy cases happens for minors and youth. And I just want to tell my connection with religion to let you know how low and how desperate I was as a 20-year-old to need change, and I would do anything to feel normal and to be accepted by my family and by my peers, you know? So I was home from spring break from college, and I was at my mom and dad's house staying with them. I was very depressed. It was a really dark time, and I remember I just cried out in my room I can't do this anymore. I need something to change in my life. If you're listening to me, God, make this happen now. And literally the next morning I had a knock on my door, and my mom woke me up to come downstairs, and my dad had found something on my laptop and he wanted to talk about it. So I was like, "Oh, really? You heard me. We're doing it right now. Thanks." I didn't know it was going to happen like this. So I go downstairs, and with that sign, I was like, this is my family's asking me to come clean. What does this mean? And so I told them I'm gay. That's what you found on my thing. And when I came out to them, I also came out to them about other past sexual trauma that I never told them about from my youth, because I was too scared to, because I thought something would happen to me from all the things that I heard in religion growing up. So when I told my parents that I was gay and that I had been sexually assaulted, the church they were going to at the time, they believed that any sexual relation that you have with somebody, you can pick up demons and a piece of someone. So the church thought that I was demon possessed, and that's why I was coming out as homosexual to them and having this problem. So I agreed to go to the church with them, and their church had 8 people in the room that I didn't know. It was a conference room to the side of the sanctuary, and they performed an exorcism on me that night to convert me straight and to get the gay demons out of me. And it felt like it went on for years, but it was probably only a couple of hours. It was very I had to sit in front of them to this prayer warrior with all these people holding on to me. I literally had to shine light in every aspect of my life. They asked for first and last names of people that I had sexual contact with. And in my mind, I already felt unsettled about that, because what if I'm outing someone else? And what if they are going to have to experience what I'm going through right now? So I just made up names, but somehow the person said that I was lying and to tell the truth. And so it was such a mindful, messed up experience. And when you're so vulnerable and at a low that you're searching for help and for change, and then this is what happened. It was very messed up. It was a rough experience. They tried to get me to speak in tongues, and we moved through that exorcism that night, and I had to go on a couple weeks meeting with pastors one-on-one to do counseling and speak on what my path is for the future. One of the pastors was trying to get me to sign up to go to an actual camp called Exodus. Exodus camp, I forget where it is.
Where you want to go?
Huh?
Know where you want to go?
No, I did. I already knew there I didn't want to go. Well, first of all, I felt like I didn't have to go, because after that exorcism, I felt such a huge change and a huge difference after I left that experience. And that change that I felt really, really messed with me for a long time, because I mistaked that change for possibly being straight and being fixed. And that wasn't the case. The change that I was feeling, the gorilla off my back, was I had no more secrets. Every secret I possibly had, you took everything from me that day. You made me speak about everything, with my mom and dad standing there crying and red-faced, hearing everything I could possibly say. It was humiliating and shameful.
God.
And when I was meeting one-on-one with these pastors, they would tell me that if I continued on being homosexual, that I would never find success in life. I would never find real love. I would always live my life in misery. And that happened when I was 20, and I can say, as a 33-year-old, I'm married. I'm happily married. I got married back in August to my husband.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Things are good. I've had everything that I've set out to achieve, and I know that I'm not broken, and I know that I was born perfect, and there's nothing for me to change, But it's still, to this day, I have aftermath effects from conversion therapy. I do have problems connecting with new people. It's hard, and I know that that's in my past, and not everyone's out to get you, and you could but it's hard sometimes. It's hard to make new relationships and have communication, and I feel like that would be very different if I didn't have gone through those situations.
Does the name McCrae Game mean anything to you guys? And I'll tell you why. He was a conversion therapy center founder who actually tried to turn LGBTQ Christians straight for years. And he found this Hope for Wholeness network, which of course implies that if you're gay, you're not whole. Trying to get people to get rid of their LGBTQ identities. And interestingly, after 20 years of that, he found out that he himself is gay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. And that the conversion therapy is extremely harmful.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was laughing at, because I knew that's what was going to happen, because you are who you are.
Well, that's the point. So, I find it fascinating that there are only 18 or 19 states in the District of Columbia where conversion therapy is illegal. So, Tanner, I want you to talk to us about what it is that you're trying to accomplish with this conversion therapy bill, and how we can help to spread the message, and what citizens can do to contact their legislators to tell them that they oppose conversion therapy and would like it to be officially banned in Kentucky, as it has been in Louisville.
Absolutely. So first of all, it's really interesting that you brought up McRae Game, because we actually worked with him and 30 other former ex-gay leaders to submit an op-ed in Kentucky this past August. And that's how common his story is.
Yeah.
There's been dozens of former, not just conversion therapists, but people that founded these theories and created these networks. They were not just the therapists, but the leaders in this movement that have later come out and said, this not only didn't work, but I regret so much the harm that I've caused to so many kids and adults over the years. And, I myself, am gay, and there's nothing I can do to change that, but all that I can do is speak out and try to prevent this from happening further. So,
Isn't that amazing?
Absolutely. Such a common thing to hear. And I think we'll continue to hear more ex-gay leaders, as they call themselves, to continue to come out and to hopefully be able to do that. In terms of our legislation, our bill, we're in Kentucky. It's narrowly tailored. It would protect, it specifically applies to licensed practitioners in the state, which basically means any doctors, counselors, psychologists, social workers who are using conversion therapy on minors. So we trust doctors and counselors to do what's right for us. You go to a doctor, you want them to help you and to make you better, right? And so unfortunately, there are people in our state that are using a practice that is proven to be ineffective and harmful. We know from Forever Project data, which is an organization that works to prevent LGBT youth suicide, we know about 42% of survivors attempt suicide at one point, which is, that's almost 50%. Could you imagine any other practice that we would allow to continue if the suicide rate was even 10%? Yeah. And yet this is a pervasive issue in our state and in many states across the country. Our bill, in addition to preventing licensed practitioners from using conversion therapy on minors, also has an educational component. If passed, it would provide educational materials on conversion therapy and the harms that it poses to professionals across the state that work with youth. They're not required to do anything with the materials, but the idea is that the more people we can educate and bring in, since a lot of people don't even realize this is still happening or aren't familiar with the issue, the idea is that hopefully we can reach more people, and if they do see it happening, they can recognize the signs and help you to get help.
And one of the limitations of this bill is that you don't have any power. There's no teeth in this bill to enforce this with churches, who are some of the primary offenders of pushing conversion therapy.
Absolutely. We know that only about 30 to 40% of all conversion therapy is conducted by licensed practitioners. So that's why we are so intentional with our legislation and with our movement to really increase our education efforts and reach people. So we have our ambassador program of 80 folks across the Commonwealth that go into all 120 counties to educate our communities, raise awareness, partner with mental health providers there to, make sure that we're able to reach folks in other ways. We also have that component of the bill that provides educational materials in other ways, because we recognize, we get pushback on that. But the thing is that our bill is actually, if it were to be passed, it would be the most comprehensive conversion therapy ban in the entire nation, more so than California or New York. And we're going as far as we can while considering the fact that we are in Kentucky and we live in the Bible Belt, and we have a now Republican supermajority, and we're fortunate enough to have now several very vocal Republican sponsors on our legislation that have been doing lots of interviews for us and submitting op-eds and everything. But we have to take steps.
The fact that Alice Forgy Kerr is the primary sponsor of this bill is nothing short of a miracle. Talk to us about how she became aware of conversion therapy and why she offered to take this job on. It's not a popular position.
Yeah, so, for those of you that are listening that don't know Senator Kerr, she is a Baptist Sunday school teacher. She formerly was behind the anti-marriage equality movement here in Kentucky. And, has a gay son and watched the movie Boy Erased and saw the harm that can come from these practices and reached out to us and said, I want to make sure that others, especially parents, that during this vulnerable time when their kids come out to them, especially if they're particularly religious, aren't talked into doing this fraudulent practice, basically saying that if she, when her son had come out to her, if she, were to have been talked into doing these practices by a pastor or by a therapist, just recognizing the potential harm she caused to her own kids. So I think that's really her motivating factor is helping other parents from being talked into these practices.
We have a question from a viewer, Dusty, who is interested in knowing, how is yours and your parents' relationship now? Have you guys reestablished communication?
Yeah, well, after my conversion happened, I moved away and I moved to New York. I lived in New York City for 10 years. And in the time that I've lived in New York City, I took a lot of time away from my family. We didn't speak for a while. And then we had terms where my mom and dad apologized for conversion. They know it was wrong, and they disagree. I'm actually in southern Indiana right now, like a couple miles away from them. We moved back in September, and we're going to be here for a bit. So, like, we're working on it, and we're close, and I spend time with them. I've been taking care of them this week. They've been sick. Like, it's just, everything's a journey. And honestly, I really believe, like, if it can work out with my crazy religious family for them to turn and for us to have a relationship and to work on things, I know that there has to be light in the tunnel for a lot of people, because this is so dangerous, and I thought my life was so bleak. I thought it was over. I thought there was nowhere to go with it because I couldn't have my family on my side. And I never thought we would be where we are today. I'm very grateful for that.
I know Summer and Wright have some questions, so I'll pop in one more, and then we've still got about 7.5 minutes left in the interview. But on a little bit lighter note, what was it like to be on RuPaul's Drag Race?
Oh God, it was a lot. I was so shook when I was on that show. It's one of my favorite TV shows ever. And then to be a drag queen in New York City and to get plucked to be on it, it was just like such a surreal thing. It all happened in a blink of an eye, I feel.
That's hysterical. Where were you performing in New York?
Everywhere, girl. She was booked.
Did you ever go to Don't Tell Mamas?
Of course, absolutely.
I loved going down and singing. I loved going and singing there. That was so much fun.
Absolutely, it's a great spot.
So Summer Dickerson, of course, has extraordinary experiences as a survivor in human trafficking. So she is an anti-human trafficking advocate, and I know before we went on, she spoke some very strong support words to you. And Summer, take the opportunity to speak, please.
Well, sorry, I'm a little emotional because I can relate with this a lot, right? And so I'm so proud that they are bringing this to the forefront and fighting this, because, I was looking into some stuff, because I was like, all right, we're going to do this. Like, I want to see, and I want to get some numbers of youth that this possibly could affect. So people, because I've learned for whatever reason, people like numbers, they want to hear. And there's an estimate of 20,000 LGBTQ plus, and that's what they estimate, right? So I always say, if you get an estimate of number of children that can be affected by this, if that's there's probably 500,000 you don't even know about, you know what I mean? Because so much stuff happens undercover. And so I'm glad that people these amazing, brothers of mine. Yes, I'm going to call you brothers of mine because that's how I address people. But I'm just so proud of them for doing that. And then, I was sitting there looking into all the different states that had it. And I was, it's like California, Colorado, Hawaii, Delaware, Connecticut, all these places. And I'm like, well, why don't, Kentucky have it? And, they were very right about the whole, because we're a Bible Belt. But I don't really have questions. I just have praise. I'm very, very, very proud of them. Because for someone that has been through something, is traumatic and torture like that, it does take a lot. And a lot of people don't realize that. And so I am big on empowering people to step forward if you can, you know what I mean? Because it's a lot. That in itself, telling your story is a lot. And so the only question I was going to have was ask him about the Rupaul show, and you grabbed it. So.
I beat you to it.
If I can actually add to that, though, so the Williams Institute at UCLA estimates that about 700,000 Americans have gone through conversion therapy, with about 350,000 of those being as minors. So that 20,000 number that you were mentioning is actually the number of youth that are expected to undergo conversion therapy within the next 5 years. So absolutely just insane.
Tanner, what's the suicide rate?
So the estimates vary slightly, but between the Trevor Project and other data, they estimate about 42 to 48% of survivors attempt suicide at one point. And I think I forgot to mention earlier, it'd be one thing if there wasn't a consensus among the medical community, but every single credible mental health and medical association in the country agrees that these practices are not only ineffective, but harmful. And that's the same here in the state of Kentucky. We have the Nurses Association, the Psychological Association, the Medical Association, the Kentucky Mental Health Coalition that has over 80 organizations. They all agree that these practices need to stop, especially for kids. Our medical association can't even agree on whether or not medical marijuana is beneficial, but is unilaterally saying we must put an end to conversion therapy.
Right.
So, I think just to point to, these decisions aren't made lightly by these associations. It takes a lot of research and backing for them to take an official stance on legislation like this. And for us to have over 100 organizations in the state in support, I think says something significant, especially with so many of the organizations also being pretty conservative organizations.
Give us the instructions for our sending to the people who are watching of what we can do to support you.
Somebody write this down.
Yeah, I got several people that were asking, is there any particular legislation for Kentucky that is in the works?
Yes.
So this is the 5th year that we're working on legislation, and things have started to accelerate very quickly. Our bill that we're focusing on first this year is House Bill 19. There is a companion bill in the Senate, Senate Bill 30. We call it the Youth Mental Health Protection Act, and I believe that's exactly what it does, is it protects the mental health of our kids. In terms of supporting it, visit banconversiontherapyky.org and look up your instructions on how to contact your legislators in support. This session, they've changed the rules so that only laws they believe are going to pass even get assigned to committee, which is frustrating because last session we had 30 co-sponsors, going on more before COVID hit, and we know that the vast majority of legislators are in support. So contacting leadership, urging them to assign this to the Licensing and Occupations Committee is so important, especially since we can't wait another year to pass this legislation. That's another year that even more youth are going to be exposed to lifelong psychological trauma. So,
very good. Well, we are down to a minute. Any last thoughts, Summer or Riot, that you want to share? Dustin, anything that you'd like to share?
One final question. I have some people that are wondering, are there resources locally for anyone that would find themselves in a situation where they would need help from something like this?
So in terms of, for survivors, there is a national organization we work with called the Conversion Therapy Dropout Network that does support groups for former survivors, which I can certainly after this link that in the comments.
Absolutely.
For just parents who are just desperate, they don't know what to do, or maybe folks that maybe know someone else that may be putting their kids through conversion therapy. Mental Health America of Kentucky would be an amazing resource. And also just reaching out to us online. If you go to our website, we may not have the answers, but we can at least point you in the right direction. So,
well, since we're running out of time, if you want to send us a list of links, we'll make sure to get them out there.
Absolutely. Dusty?
Yes.
Thank you. I wish I could wrap my